Welcome to a new planetary and seismic update. This update is late because I've been very sick last week. I'm still recovering, so this update is a bit late, but here we go. In the previous time frame, we had some temporal clustering, the typical temporal clustering that follows on specific planetary geometry. On the 25th, we had Earth in a conjunction with Mercury and Saturn, and you can see that an obvious cluster took off right there, but it peaked only magnitude 6.1. And so we see that the stronger earthquakes remain absent, and I covered that in the previous update, especially the mid-6 magnitude earthquakes. They have occurred below average, especially in 2024. And then we had this convergence of critical planetary geometry and lunar geometry on the 28th and the 1st of March. And from up until that moment in time, we had 5.6 at the Banda C, and then everything stopped. That is, no earthquakes with magnitude 5.5 and larger. And that's typically what we look at and what we show here on the SSGI graph. This is very interesting. Up until the 4th, we had a 5.4 this morning in Myanmar, India border region. So that's just below 5.5. It followed on the lunar conjunction with Uranus. I'll cover that in a minute. But as you can see, with that convergence on there on the 28th of February and the 1st of March, no 5.5 larger earthquakes from that moment on. If you look at the next time frame, what we have today is a convergence of two planetary conjunctions involving Venus and Mercury. Something to keep in mind is Venus, Mercury, Neptune, and it will be followed by Sun, Mercury, Jupiter. It's a close convergence, there are only some 7 hours in between. And you see Earth, Moon, Uranus, like I said earlier. And just following that lunar conjunction, we had a 5.4, borderline 5.5 perhaps. Maybe it's going to be revised in the coming days. And then we have, well, if we look at this convergence, well, let's have a look at the solar system first. In the solar system, we see this planetary geometry. Venus, Mercury, Neptune. That's a critical conjunction. There can be an obvious seismic response following because Venus and Mercury are both involved. That's significant. And at the same time, while there's only 7 hours in between, we have Sun, Mercury, and Jupiter in a conjunction. That's a pretty tight convergence there. So what we look for is the next lunar geometry. Of just preceding that planetary geometry, we had the Moon in a conjunction with Uranus. But what we look for is the lunar geometry that follows on the planetary geometry. And then we end up with Jupiter. If you look at the SSGI graph again, that will be tomorrow on the 6th, Earth, Moon, Jupiter. And if we count about 2 days, 2.5 days from that lunar geometry, we end up around the 8th of March for a potential largest seismic response. I say potential because we haven't seen many large earthquakes in the last time, so the last period or so. And so around the 8th, that is, I think, is a time to be on watch. And then we have Earth, Moon, Mars. There can be some seismic response there, maybe even some temporal clustering. And if we look at the 12th, 11th, 12th, there we see Mercury, Venus, Earth in a conjunction. And that is significant. That is certainly something to keep in mind. There will be additional geometry, also the full moon coming up there on the 14th. And I will cover that in detail in the next update. That may become really significant. This is actually what we're going to have in this time frame. The most significant geometry is today, the convergence of these planetary conjunctions on the 5th. And there may be some seismic response, maybe some temporal clustering there in the higher 5 or 6 magnitude range. And if we look at the Moon-Jupiter conjunction again, like I said, we could be looking at the largest seismic response around the 8th of March. This is the update. Check out the links in the description box, also for the atmospheric fluctuations, potential regions and such. This is the update for now. Stay safe. Until next time.